Hey guys, welcome back to the CCA Corner. It's been a minute since I was here. Cole and I went on vacation, or rather, he went on vacation and I took some time off and he came to see me. So we let Morris kind of take the reins and do his own thing, and he did a great job. Good job,
Hey,
Morris. And I'm
hey,
also here with
thanks.
Morris.
Hey guys. Yeah, thank you, Mallory. I'm glad to have you guys back. It was a little bit of pressure to try and figure out this nonsense all by myself.
You did great. And then additionally, not only am I here with Morris, but we have a very special guest with us today. We are joined with current Vice President of the NALC and a presidential nominee on the CLC ticket, Mr. James Henry.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure and honor to be here this evening.
Good deal. Glad to have you here. I know
Glad to be here.
you've been doing a lot of stuff, running around and getting caught up in all kinds of branches and doing all kinds of wild things, haven't you?
Yes, ma'am. Life in the big city.
Yeah. All right. So we've got a little bit of an interview set up that we're going to do here today. We're going to interview Mr. James Henry and talk to him about the CLC and how the CLC integrates into the new status quo that we want to come with the 2026 election, as well as how the CLC can benefit CCAs and how a CCA can get involved and see where the union is and what's going on and what is coming for us, what we can change, what change we can make, rather. So, Morris, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. So I know a lot of our CCAs, especially with this, the fact that the ratification process failed and like the TA got voted down. Everyone's kind of excited, and people are wanting to get involved. They want to know, but also they don't kind of know where to start, and they don't even know. A lot of people don't know what the structure is at up at national. So we kind of want to talk about some of that. Yeah, and how folk can get involved, and also who's some of the people running. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to give sort of a quick background, some of your background coming into this for a CCA who has no clue, but hears that there's an election coming up in 2026.
Yes, now as it relates to my background personally and professionally. Personally, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I went into the Marine Corps at 18 years old. I spent 22 years of credible service in the Marine Corps, retired as a gunnery sergeant. And upon my retirement, I became an RA. But prior to that, after my initial 4 years of active duty, I applied and was accepted and started working for the Postal Service as a letter carrier in February. In fact, come this month, February 22nd, 1988. I started off in Pomona, California, and 6 months into my career, I got certified as a shop steward. I got involved very early on. And as a result of getting involved, and admittedly, I didn't grow up knowing anything about unions. I didn't, certainly the military isn't a democracy. It is a dictatorship, particularly the Marine Corps. So there was no, your voice needs to be heard. Nevertheless, once I joined the union at the onset of my career, I had met Charlie Miller. He was a vice president of Branch 1100 at the time, and it invited me out to a union meeting. And as such, I got involved, and I was really intrigued, and I found the camaraderie amongst my brothers and sisters there, similar to that in the military, about looking out for one another and having the same mission and being of one mind and one cause. I really didn't know what to expect when I attended my first union meeting, but I can tell you that I was really, really drawn into it and continued to go to every union meeting thereafter. And due to my consistent participation and involvement and zeal and eagerness to learn more and more, I got involved in pretty much every facet of the branch, and ultimately ended up not only being a steward, becoming an area steward, also getting involved in employee involvement, the joint steering committees, safety, district safety programs, end up going to arbitration advocacy school, also becoming one of the very first DRT members, dispute resolution team, in the history of the NLC at the very, very beginning, at its onset. And so therefore, those opportunities and trainings gave me, helped mold me and gave me an additional knowledge to be able to move further up in the branch. And I ended up becoming a vice president for branch 1100, senior vice president, and end up moving on to become a RAA, a regional administrative assistant, and worked out of the business agent's office for 10 years. And ultimately in 2022 was appointed as national vice president by President Emeritus Fred Rolando. And while I was an RAA, the same thing, I had the opportunities as a result of working there as well to have the fortunate responsibility of teaching at the national level and assisting with the advanced Formal A and beyond class, also teaching the arbitration advocacy class. And I have been in hundreds of arbitrations. That has been rewarding for many, many reasons in terms of helping right wrongs in some instances and playing my part in ensuring that justice is served for those that are depending on their union to come to their aid, because I had been there myself before and I know what it's like. And I say it, and it may sound redundant to some people that have known me and see me often, but I say that the best ability is dependability. Again, no matter how smart, no matter how talented, no matter how gifted someone may be, if they cannot be relied upon, then it doesn't mean nothing. And that comes into play exceedingly much because the membership, and particularly the CCAs, are depending on their representatives, are depending on the NLC to come to their aid, and not only come to their aid in just a disciplinary manner, but come to their aid in ensuring that they have a living conditions and have a job that is viewed in its literal sense as a career, and not necessarily, as it is stated now here, a pathway to a career, that come to their aid, that when they want to move up in the union, that they can count on someone or depend on someone, provided them the education access and the education abilities to be able to obtain positions of becoming an officer in a local branch, and not only a local branch, maybe even in the business agent's office, and moving up even with regards to national. They depend on us to help in all manner of ways. And so these things here, I believe, are a cornerstone to your podcast and to the development of changing the mindset of those of us that are representatives, that we need to pay more attention, that we need to invest time and effort into our CCAs.
Yeah, no, and that's that's exactly like what we're trying to do. So like now you used a bunch of acronyms that we're going to have to break down for our CCAs at some point, like RAAs and DRTs, and like that. I knew none of that stuff when I first started, but like,
Yes, sir.
You've just spent your whole career pretty well being an advocate, fighting for people's jobs, and then also educating the other advocates who are fighting jobs. And you're wanting to bring that education and that sort of empowerment to the CCAs, kind of, which is kind of our mission here at the CCA Corner.
Yeah. So can you kind of give us the breakdown of the union? How union structured for those who may not know? Because like Morris said, pretend that we're all baby CCAs. We just started. How does the union work? Who is president? Can you kind of explain that to us and explain like I'm five?
Okay, well, You have both, well, not, you have essentially three levels of the union. You have your local level, which is generally regarded as your local or your branch. Then you have your national business agent office, which essentially is an intercessory between the local branch and the national resident officers. And then you have the national resident officers at headquarters level. So let's start with the national officers. You have 10 full-time or resident officers. You have the national president, who is essentially maybe perhaps you're talking about explaining it to you like you're a 5-year-old. Most people understand CEOs. That's something that is referred to on a regular basis. He's the chief executive officer of the NALC. He's ultimately responsible for everything that transpires within the union. And so you have the national president. After him, you have the executive vice president, who's somewhat like a COO, a chief operating officer, kind of help keep all the balls in the air. Then you have the vice president, which is a position that I currently occupy, who's responsible for the grievance arbitration procedure, ensuring that the grievances get processed at the national level, in charge of the national, or the chairman of the National Appeals Committee. Also, you know, uh, generally oversees the dispute resolution process, also oversees the arbitration process. Currently, at the particular moment, those duties have been reassigned to the executive vice president. Now, if you ask me why, no explanation was given to me other than the fact that, hey, the president says per Article 9 of the Constitution, which gives him opportunity or the authority to supervise. But generally speaking, that is what the vice president responsibilities have. And then beneath them, you have the director of city delivery, which is currently occupied by Christopher Jackson. And it's pretty much so self-explanatory. Director of city delivery, pretty much so most of the issues relating to route inspections and things that are impactful or relating to letter carriers, daily responsibilities. They interact with post service and help ensure that those things are implemented and are of in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement. See, after the director of city delivery, you have the national secretary treasurer, which is currently occupied by Nicole Ryan, who, again, the title is pretty much so self-explanatory. Secretary Treasurer, she's responsible for essentially all the finances and keeping the books. And then after the National Secretary Treasurer, you have the Assistant Secretary Treasurer, which is currently occupied by Mac Julian. And they have responsibilities, obviously, assisting the Secretary Treasurer and ensuring the maintenance and the human resource aspect of the NLC staff and employees. Then you have, after the Assistant Secretary Treasurer, you have the Director of Safety, again, self-explanatory, which is currently occupied by Manny Peralta. And you have the Director of Health Benefits, which is currently occupied by Stephanie Stewart. Again, the title is self-explanatory. She's in charge of the health benefits plan and managing all the employees that work there out there in Ashburn, Virginia. And then you have the director of OWCP and retirement, which is currently occupied by Dan Toth. And you have the who is responsible for obviously assisting retirees and overseeing the RWCH, which is a regional workers' compensation assistance that assists the letter carriers and through the business agent office with work-related injuries. And then you have the MBA, the Mutual Benefits director of MBA, the Mutual Benefit Association, which is currently occupied by Jim Yates, which is life insurance and stuff. He operates or oversees that and has employees that work there with him as well. And then from there, you go down to the regional level, which we have 15 regions within the NALC. I come from Region 1, and the regions are divided into groups of states. And the United States territory, for example, I'm from Region 1, and our territory is California, Hawaii, and Guam. So out of the 15 regions, they're headed by a national business agent, which means you have 15 national business agents. And within that business agent's office, you have RAAs, regional administrative assistants, which essentially, to break it down and make it simple, are basically assistant national business agent. It would be like if you were in the civilian world talking about having a district attorney, you have an assistant district attorney. It essentially kind of works that way. Then you have within also the National Business Agent Office, you have RGAs, which is Regional Grievance Assistants. Their primary job is to assist branches that perhaps may not have officers or stewards and assist them with processing grievances and helping them with the training as well as the business agent office overall does as well. You have the RWCAs, which I had previously stated, the Regional Workers' Compensation Assistance, which assist the letter carriers out in the field by the direction of headquarters there through Dan Toth, assist them with any issues that they may have with regards to appeals that they may have with the Department of Labor, reconsiderations, or even just assisting them with their questions and answers related to that. And then so you have RGAs, RWCAs, and he said I indicated the RAAs, which are essentially like the assistant MBAs. They do installations of officers, trainings, and man the office, particularly when the MBA may not be available, and they help also with the branches that's within their region under their responsibility. Then you go down to the absolute local level, which everyone, for the most part, are familiar with. Although every branch does not necessarily have a full slate of officers, but for the most part, at the local level, you would have a local branch president, and you would have however many officers that their particular branch bylaws call for. They vary. Some branches have executive vice presidents and vice presidents. Some of them just have vice presidents. Some of them have directors of city delivery. Some of them don't. So it just varies from there. But you have a different array of officers that will be at the local level, along with your shop stewards and alternate stewards. So that's the thumbnail sketch of the structure of the union.
That was that was a good rundown. So you mentioned something in there when you were talking about like your position, the position you currently hold, which is the vice president, right? So there's the president Renfro, and then Barner, who's the executive vice president, and then you're the vice president. You mentioned you had your kind of had your duties kind of pulled and given to the executive vice president. Because with what we got coming up with this election and stuff like that, some of the concerns that some people have is, well, James Henry's already got a position in national if we're wanting to make this big change, and like you had your duties and your mandate was kind of pulled from you. So what would you say to the people who are concerned that you kind of already have a leadership position and want to know how things will be different in 2026? And you mentioned, like you said, having your responsibilities pulled from you. Like, I assume that has something to do with it.
Well, let me start by saying this here, is that I indicated earlier on that I got appointed in May of 2022. I've been up there for 2.5 years. Unlike majority of the officers that's been there for maybe a decade or more. My concern and my responsibility is to adhere to what I feel is my duty to the letter carriers, what my duties that are outlined in the Constitution, not to be, again, I'm trying to be as clear as I can. My responsibility first and foremost is to the letter carrier, not to one individual. And so how things are going to be different, or why would they be different, is that my duties were taken for whatever the reasons may be. But if you think at it from a logical and a practical sense, I would not be where I'm at. I would not have as many years as I have if I wasn't good at what I do, right? I wouldn't have been teaching at the national level for both the grievance procedure, which is advanced formula and beyond, and the arbitration advocacy class. I would not have been in hundreds of arbitrations and have all that entrusted to me if that was not something that I was not only proficient at, but excelled at, which falls within the confines of what the National Vice President does. The distinct difference between me and some of the leadership that currently exists is that our values do not align as it relates to what our priorities are, right? My priority, as I indicated to you here, is aligned with more of what is my duty, all right? In addition to that, all right, that coupled with my military experience about no man, no woman left behind. I am not about to be in the position that I'm in and not exercise my duties and responsibilities and my authority to ensure that every letter carrier has the same opportunity and access to education and to the betterment of this union, particularly. I am not one that believes that it is the next man or next woman up. I believe it's the best man or best woman up. I don't believe in making sure that I take care of the individuals that kiss the ring, so to speak. I believe in making sure that those that demonstrated that they have the wherewithal, have the competence, and have the desire to do the job, that they are given the opportunity and that they're given due consideration to be in a position to exercise those skills and to help train and their replacement for people to be there after they are gone. I believe in hiring for attitude and training for skill. If you got the right attitude, I can teach you everything you need to know about the union.
Yeah.
Hire for attitude and train for skill. And so when it comes down to it here, it matters not to me if you are a CCA or you are a 30-year career employee. If you have the academic wherewithal, the desire, the zeal, and the willingness to do the job, you will get an opportunity when it comes to me. That's how it's going to be. And I believe also that what would be different is that people that are in these jobs should be more concerned about doing their job than trying to keep their job. They should be more concerned about the attitude of gratitude. None of us are blue bloods. None of us was born into this position. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
None of us. We should be grateful and honored to be where we act, not act like it's our God-given birthright and try and suppress other people from getting what we think belongs to us. We're elected into these positions. You weren't born into these positions. And so when I say the best person up versus the next person up, that is a distinct difference between what would happen then versus sometimes what goes down now.
Good deal.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The CLC. If people are living under a rock, James Henry is currently running for president for the 2026 election under the CLC ticket. Can you kind of talk to us about the CLC, what the CLC is, and touch on, maybe some of the CLC platform, what we stand for, and let's hold off on CCA specific stuff, and then we'll get into CCA specifics after we kind of talk about the platform itself.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is here, you can go on to concernledcarriers.com and you'll find our platform in much more detail. But the CLC, the acronym stands for Concerned Letter Carriers. And that is in a literal sense, not a figurative sense. But that is what CLC stands for, is Concerned Letter Carriers. We are a 501(c). We are a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to the improvement and the development of competent and leadership. We are about reform, about bringing the union to the place where it once was in regards to being regarded a organization that is steeped with all kinds of a wonderful history and all kinds of competent leadership and strong leadership and fairness, and a vehicle for those to assemble themselves and fight for their rights on the workroom floor, and to make sure that our people have a living wage and things of that nature. There are a lot of things that we talk about this scenario where you have this electronic leash, so to speak, how letter carriers as a whole are being monitored through these scanners and all these other things, and it's abused by management. When we're talking about reinstituting the director of education, the current president abolished that position when he came up. Prior to, there was a director of education. I believe without any equivocation that it is important that our letter carriers are educated, and it's important that we develop leaders, and that education filters down to the workroom floor by making sure that our stewards and our branch officers are all fully educated, and educated not just on what the articles are in the collective bargaining agreement, but educated on how you do your job. I say our job is part skill, part strategy. It's not just enough to know what to do, but how to do your job. And if it was ever in Exhibit A, it is here now as we're going through our collective bargaining negotiations here, about where everybody knows what needs to be done, but how do you get that accomplished? How do you get it done? So those are the things that are, let's say, example, at the top of the list when you're talking about our platform of developing leaders, instituting education, making sure that our collective bargaining agreement is adhered to, and just an array of things that you would think is fundamental and basic that seems to just have dissipated over the period of years.
That's rad. And that thing about education is so important, because especially movements that educate the rank and file along with the stewards. Like I was talking with Richie Ray, and we were mentioning, if for me to get steward training, I got to position first. Why would I get a job and then get educated for the job I just went for, right? The rank and file needs to have some of that.
It depends on your region, because in Region 6, you can just go to steward training.
Oh.
So that might just be like your region thing.
Yeah, I'm in Texas. Everything's weird in Texas.
But let me speak to that as well. Here's one of the things that overall that I think is kind of a flaw in the system. That one of my platforms is about having more of a standardized way of doing things. Currently, right now, we have 15 NBAs or 15 regions, right? Yeah. And to some degree, sometimes it appears as we have 15 individual subset unions within the NALC,
Yeah.
because there's no one particular way that everybody do it. Now, I'm not by no means at all advocating for some type of micromanaging, but what I am advocating for is situation awareness, making sure that there is a baseline, that everybody knows that this is what's expected. This is the standard that we have. If you were to go into a high-end department store, you know, you go into Bloomingdale's, you know that you're going to find higher end quality clothes than you would perhaps going into Walmart. You know that if you played football at Ohio State or USC, that those are athletes, the standards are much higher. You know that if you go to Harvard, Yale, or Princeton, that there is a higher standard for you to get in and get a law degree or a medical degree. So that as a NLC representative, we should have, I believe, a baseline that we should, at minimum, we all should know that this is what can be expected from everybody all around. Now, there may be a little derivative between here and there, you know, but there should be more of a standardized way of doing things, that everybody's getting the same message. And I think somehow that is a crack in our wall, or bend sort of like in our holes, that that information is not filtering out to the field to everyone the way it's supposed. If some folks, if they don't take their own initiative to learn and get things done, they don't get the mentoringship that they need to get. So everyone knows exactly, at minimum, what should happen, what you should get, what you should be doing. Because like, again, I said, our job is part skill, part strategy. It's not just enough to know what to do, but you got to know how to do your job.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. One of the main things I wanted to talk about accountability, because I know you said that's big for you, is accountability. So I think we're having a huge issue with our national leadership right now in accountability. Renfro's able to, our current president, Renfro's been able to pull all sorts of nonsense because of his position, like having an executive board there and council that he doesn't seem to give the time of day to very often, like all these other positions, and just being able to pull people's responsibilities off of them without any checks or balances that you think you would want to have in an organization. On that topic of, like, do you have any plans for in 2026, you win, you get in there? Do you have any plans to sort of limit the power of the position, your own position, sure that someone doesn't get in and take advantage of all of those constitutional, like, powers, that without putting in any sort of like checks and balances, right? I'm talking about like some stuff where pulling just some of the egregious things that we've seen in the last 600 days, that someone somewhere on an executive, someone should have been able to like stop that, or at least slow it down, or put it to a vote of, make it a more democratic process up at the top. That's kind of I know that was kind of a long way to get. Do you have any sort of like plans, does CLC have any sort of plans to sort of limit the power of that position and put some checks and balances in, so we don't have a repeat of some of the nonsense we've seen over the last 600 days?
Brother Morris, let me share this with you here. The reason that question is a good question, and why it resonates with a lot of individuals, and is because when you have a scenario where seemingly someone or some people abuse their authority, then there seems a lot of times to be an overcorrection, right? What needs to happen here is that the system of checks and balances is the members. The membership rules supreme, right? What needs to happen here is the enforcement of the rules that are already in place. The rules that are already in place don't get enforced to the degree that they should be, because politics and political favoritism or deference to one another occurs. That should not be the point. Needs to be made. During the most recent Article 10 charges that had went to national. The president had made a profound statement that he's not anybody.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what we're talking about.
All right. But see, here's the thing. But that's not true. You have the executive board that should be exercising this authority. And you have the membership that can make amendments. Now, I could write up an amendment, whatever, but it's best suited coming from members as to what they expect. Because here's the reality. You still have to be able to have some leeway to do your job, right? But what happens here is you got to have people in position authority that is trustworthy. That what I was speaking about earlier, that has duty first and foremost on their mind, adhering to what the rules are. Not that because I am now in charge, I can do and say and act or not do whatever I don't want to do. I often say here that people do or don't do things for one or two reasons, either because they don't know or they don't care. Once you make sure that they know and they continue to do it or not correct their behavior, it's then safe to assume it's because they don't care. We have to make sure that the executive council knows that the membership demands that they do their job. The president needs to know that the membership demands that he does his job. And it's not just the president, myself, and any other officer, whether you're at the local level, at the business agent, or at the national level. And when someone doesn't do that, or don't correct their behavior, or continue to do that's counterproductive to the will of the membership and the Constitution, then what is the remedy for that? Then they can get voted out. Mm-hmm. That's what happens. So what we need to do is enforce the rules that are already in place. Let me share this. I give you an example. You take the dispute resolution team, step B decisions, and how there's this enormous backlog. And the grievance procedure in and of itself is not a bad thing. That's not the problem. The problem is not the system, but the application of the system. How it's abused, how it is not enforced that if you don't meet within these 7 days, the union should be appealing it to the next level. Not concerning yourself about some report that you think that you have that you don't have, because you have a responsibility to those letter carriers. So it's not the system in and of itself. It's the application of the system. It's not the rules that's in place. It's the lack of enforcement of the rules or application, of applying them in a lax form or a non-existent manner. That is a huge problem. And so when it comes to me, is that I will make sure that accountability is a real thing, not just in theory, but in actuality.
The example that comes to mind from that conversation is the open bargaining resolution that passed by the membership, and no word ever happened of it. We were supposed to be getting regular updates on members only portal, and where were our updates? I mean, the TA came out, maybe like a month or two after, but it was supposed to have been, it was ratified by the membership at convention, and nothing ever happened of that. Just another example of the lack of accountability currently.
And absolutely. And so right there, and again, you made 2 points in one, because the other thing goes to point what I was making. You make a very, very valid point. But you said here that the system isn't broke, because the membership, we had the opportunity to say, hey, this is what we need. This is what we want. This is what we voted on. It ain't the system. It's the application of the system, because the ones that's responsible for applying it and providing those updates are not doing it.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, that's a perfect segue into our next point, which was transparency. A lot of the membership that I see online and that I've spoken to just through the grapevine, I suppose, is upset about the fact that there seems to be a lack of transparency and a lack of dissemination of information from national down to the rank and file. And I guess our question here is, what plans do you, and by proxy the CLC, have to make sure that information is disseminated to the rank and file beyond just what trickles down to branch meetings? And is there going to be open bargaining? Maybe live streaming events. We were talking about that during convention, the fact that, people who are stuck at home can't see convention, can't hear convention. People took it into their own hands and made sure that others could hear convention, and they got in trouble for it. Like the lack of transparency is a huge problem in the rank and file right now. And we'd just like to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, let me state unequivocally that I am a huge proponent of transparency. Now, transparency comes in multiple forms. It may sound contradictory in terms because people have different standards as to what transparency looks like, right? I may think that by doing a weekly update, or in this instance, say, for example, say the president did a video call or Zoom or put out something in the media sense on a weekly basis, that may suffice for some, and others may think that it should happen on a daily basis or whenever something happens. Again, I'm a huge proponent of transparency. The membership is the ones that would determine whether or not, something should be streamed, because obviously, as you guys are very technologically advanced, that perhaps the average person definitely more than I am. But I do know that there are some inherent issues with, when you put things out without the necessary control marks involved, that it may cause more problems than others in terms of voting and things of that nature. But in and of itself, do I believe that people and the membership should have access to pretty much whatever it is that we do? Yes. Do I think that we should communicate more frequently than what we do at the national level? Yes. I say that if, for example, if I was involved in the national negotiations, whatever it is that we were discussing, that I would inform the membership, this is what we're discussing. I wouldn't obviously make known what it is that the negotiation as it relates to, this is what I offer, this is what they offer, back and forth, because there becomes what's called a chilling effect. It depends on what it is that you come down. But when you have your overall goal, there's nothing, in my view, a problem with saying, hey, we think that all the carriers should, if you think they should rate $50 an hour, you say, hey, we're going to be asking for $50 an hour. How is that damaging to your position when you have to tell them anyway what it is that you want? Now, if they counter back and say, well, we offered you 40, and you counter back and you say, oh, 5, those kind of things, you might want to try and keep a little, too close to your vest until you come to some type of agreement or don't come to agreement. But in terms of letting the membership know, this is what we're seeking for you. I remember back in the day when we were seeking level 6, everyone knew that letter carriers, that our union was asking that all letter carriers, that we work harder, that we should be level 6 and not level 5. Then we asked that we get level 7, things of that nature. So transparency is something that is exceedingly important. And like I said, it takes on different forms. And those things are something that I believe are perhaps worked out on a case-by-case basis, or I guess the scenario that's at hand. But in and of itself, transparency is something that should occur.
Good deal. So you were on Fed Up recently, right? Was that Corey that was on Fed Up?
I was on there too, not too long ago, a couple months ago.
Good deal. So you were on Fed Up. Can you explain a little bit?
Man, Ron Speakman.
Yeah.
Bolton.
We love Ron.
We loved Ron.
Yeah. Can you explain a little bit about what principle-based contract negotiations are and your plan to implement that when you become president and the CLC takes over?
Well, principle-based contract negotiations, one, as you had just indicated, is being transparent, acting in actual good faith, not just going in there on, let me see here, playing the shell game. You should go in there with a goal in mind based on what it is that you believe your worth is. As a laborer, you've heard me say that I believe that letter carriers deserve and should be the industry leaders in wages, benefits, and working conditions. That's principle based. Not have to go in there and say, well, hey, I want $40 an hour. What you go in there and say, hey, this is what I believe our labor is worth, and this is what I think represents that worth. All the things that are I guess maybe your intangibles, the things that really matters the most to your letter carriers. We are going in there based on what represents the best interest or what's going to be in the best interest of our letter carriers. What is going to get us from hire date to retirement date? What is going to provide us with a living wage? And how do you go about implementing that? One is to be informed. That's why it's important that you are connected with the letter carriers in the field by either communicating with them, station visits, and just keeping your fingers on the pulse. The other way of implementing that is not being a lone wolf, about getting other individuals that are experienced in negotiations and have an opinion as well, and factoring those opinions and experience, employing that experience into your efforts in achieving our goal. I do believe, as you guys know, I like to let everybody get what their opinion is and make a decision from there. Not necessarily always because you're swayed by the decision, but it can affirm what it is that you're thinking, or maybe bring up something that maybe you not thought about. So nobody is an island. No one single person knows it all. So, you have to, like I said, have principle-based contract negotiations. And you can't do that and bargain in good faith without being informed, without having inclusion of other people that experience and not understanding that what you're truly trying to achieve.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. And talking about like what we're trying to achieve, that's another question I know a lot of CCAs have, and myself, so it's pretty well, like common knowledge that the CCAs are just treated like dog shit by both the NALC at a national level. Like, our stewards are great. Our stewards are looking out for us, but the higher up you go on the food chain, it's like the less that we matter, and the more we're forgotten, and the more we're left behind, and the more we're brutalized by the post office because of it. And and this TA is a clear example of that. They were trying to keep with the TA, the CCA position, the proposed mentorship program. They didn't talk to a CCA when they were writing that language. Like, they never talked to any CCA, I guarantee you. Like, there's no union representation at Amazon Sundays. There's not really a whole lot of union presence for a CCA till a CCA gets in trouble for something, and then they meet their steward. You know what I mean? And it's not that way everywhere, but this is a broad experience. This is a big part of the CCA experience for a lot of people. Yourself and the CLC have been you guys have been talking about the CCAs and talking about like how we need to look out for the CCAs and like getting the CCAs organized and all this other stuff. And I will tell you, having been kind of kicked around and how shitty things have been for the CCAs up till this point in my career, a lot of CCAs, they're like, that sounds good, but I don't know, because we're not used to even getting someone talking about the shit that we go through aside from, I did it. So you got to do it. You know what I mean? So like, I kind of, I know like, I'm not a religious person, but I know you are. Faith is a big thing for you. My favorite part of the Bible is faith without works is dead. And we want we want to know, like, a big question that a lot of CCAs have is, okay, they're saying all the right things, but like, what is the plan? Like, because like some people are a little nervous when someone starts being nice to them after no one's been nice to them. You know what I mean? And I think that that's a question a lot of CCAs have is what you guys talking about us and wanting to do good things for the CCA, that already puts you head and shoulders above anybody else as far as most of us are concerned. But for the people who are a little worried about the other shoe dropping, what would you say as far as like what actionable plans the CLC and your slate would have to improve the quality of life for that position in the event that we can't just completely abolish it outright in the next contract negotiations, or there's lottery tickets in there's a lottery ticket in the gas station somewhere if they get rid of it in this next at arbitration. If they don't and it's around, what actionable stuff is the CLC and what are you wanting to do for the CCAs, I guess?
Well, first and foremost, I agree with you wholeheartedly about how CCAs have been overall, historically so far, treated by both the NALC and by management. And because of that, I understand the lack of faith that anything would be any different. If you're saying faith without works is dead and works without faith is dead, obviously, if you work at something and don't believe in it, then you quit along the way. And if you believe in something, but you don't put any work into it, you don't get any results. So that's why faith without works is dead, and faith without works is dead, and works without faith is dead. We have to lead by example. And as I was talking to you earlier about education, part of the problem is that CCAs are not involved. Why are they not involved? Because perhaps some may think, well, they're just a passing thing. They may be here today and go tomorrow. They're not a career employee. And they don't take the time to say, come down to the meeting. Let me take the time to educate you. One of the things that would be important and that I would definitely want to see and push to occur is that CCAs are given the same access to training and development as a career carrier. Not only given the access, that they are mentored not only with how to carry mail, but how to deal with conflict and dispute on the workroom floor. So that when that occurs, those kind of things, if you get educated by the contract and by the book, and you are getting real world experience with regards to how to handle situations and disputes on the workroom floor, that makes you more competitive for branch officer positions. And when you are in a branch officer position and you excel at those, you tend to get noticed at the business or regional level, business agent or regional level, which then gives you greater opportunities to represent and get a higher level education other than just at your particular branch, which then translates into perhaps getting noticed at the national level. Those things are important about getting involved and making sure that everyone has the same opportunities that the others have. And so they can rise through the ranks, because the most effective way to effect change is from the inside out, not from the outside in. And so if you're on the inside, meaning that you now become one of those ones that's trained the trainers. You're one of the ones that's going out and educating carriers at branches about route inspections. You're one of the ones that are telling carriers that your rights were violated. Don't sit here and argue with the manager. If they tell you to go carry this mail and you know that you're not, that's a contractual violation, unless it's illegal, immoral, or unsafe, the rule is follow the instruction and you grieve it later. That's the manner in teaching them how to deal with conflict on the floor, because you don't want it to morph into something other than what you're dealing with. Because now it don't become just a violation of an Article 8 or whatever the matter may be, and now you fail to follow my instructions. And so we want to make sure that our CCAs are well-rounded by education and have experience, and that they have the ability and access to upper mobility within our ranks so that they can feel a part of and encourage others. And so they will be an example as well for other CCAs to see that, hey, these people care about me. I'm not just a dues paying member, but I'm an actual activist. I'm actually cared about.
At least until we get rid of CCA position altogether and everybody comes in as PTF.
And I tell you, let me make this very clear to you here. My goal, whether I'm the national president or the vice president, as long as I am a member of the NALC, I will always advocate and be a proponent for an all-career workforce. As such, when I came on board, I think that every CCA needs to be converted to career. But until such time it happens, in the interim, what we need to do is make sure that they have a living wage.
Right. And a means to an education.
And that they're not treated like they got a tail.
Right. So the way that we move forward with a lot of this is shaking up the status quo, causing trouble, ruffling feathers, getting things where they need to be, right? So can you kind of tell us a little bit about the current state of affairs, how the NALC is functioning, or rather is not functioning?
Well, I think that the NALC could and should be paying more attention to its members and hearing what has to be said and what is being said, and factoring that into our decision making and the way that we move. I don't believe that those that make the ultimate decision sometime now have taken it as seriously as it should be. Our union, people often say, is divided. But normally when they're talking about this union is divided, they're talking about when people disagree. For example, you're saying about the CCAs and how they're treated. There may be some people that would disagree with that and say, I don't see no difference, because their experience in the office, hey, everybody's treated the same. But by and large, that's an accurate statement that there is a disparity between the CCAs and the career workforce. The NALC is an organization that everyone that when I came on board was exceedingly proud to be a member of. I mean, you would wear just the NALC logo or lapel pin, your hat, whatever, bear those acronyms because you was a proud member. And somehow it has become seemingly like a mark of deficiency. And that shouldn't be the case. As I was stating last night, we all should be proud to be NALC members. And I would like and encourage everybody to rally around one another, to unify. And that is something that I think is a problem within the NALC now. It's become more personality-based versus issue-based. What are the things that are important to our letter carriers? I used to say to managers or postmasters or whoever it is on the management staff when I would go into the workroom floor, They say, "He's just coming in here and stirring up the problem, stirring up some problems." I said, "No, no, I don't have a problem with you. Are you just dislike?" "No, I don't dislike that. I dislike what they're doing to my letter carrier, but I don't dislike that person. My issue is with what you're doing. I have a problem with the issue, not a problem with you." And so our NLC, the way we function, should be more issue based now versus we're just following behind a particular individual rather than individual representing the interests of what's important to the people that they're leading. So I really, really believe that that's something that we need to course correct on.
And you kind of talked about in the beginning of that statement how the NALC needs to pay more attention to what the members are saying and what the members have to say. I think it's really telling right now that the NALC has silenced the members online. We're not allowed to comment on Facebook posts or Twitter posts or anything like that. They've just completely silenced the members, and it has pissed people off because nobody can say what they want anymore because
Rightfully so.
it's just asinine.
No, rightfully so. It should be upset. You know what? You listened to the podcast when I was on last night. Democracy is not just when you agree with it. And how can you correct something if you're unaware of what the problem is? And if you stem that informational conduit, such as the online comments that can and should be made, even if they're unpleasant, you need to hear them so you can hear what people are saying and make the correct adjustments to represent and to be of service to these letter carriers. I don't believe that we should. What's the point of having a forum to be able to communicate when you can't communicate? What is that all about?
Right.
So I agree with you. That is something that I think is a misstep.
So or rather, does the CLC have any plans to change any kind of leadership structure at a national level? Is there any kind of reformatting or restructuring that, other than reinstating the educator role, is there anything else that maybe the people might want to know that the CLC plans to do in that format? And I mean, there might not be an answer to this. It's just something we thought of to ask.
No, I understand, and that's a good question. As of right now, those are the things that I think that would be best suited in a right now kind of scenario, right? If there is something that comes up that necessitates a change in the leadership structure, it could be for a number of reasons. However, right now, the structure that we have served us well over the decades. I'm of the opinion it's just that some people either didn't take their responsibilities serious or have abused their responsibilities. And so if we follow the rules in the Constitution and make sure that the executive board does their job, that I think that there would be a difference that would be, I would say, at the minimum, would be acceptable to the membership as a whole.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I think that's good. And I was going to follow up that with a question. I think we covered some of that in this question already, or covered some of this question in your answer already. Because like one of the big things is the membership is kind of checked out, right? That's kind of historically how it's been the last from what I've been told the last decade or so. Like it just seems like there's sort of involvement issues with a lot of the membership, whether they're checked out or they're just ignorant of what's going on. Like as a CCA, I'm telling regulars left and right, explaining how the ratification process works, or that there's even a vote going on about stuff, and like what and different parts about the contract, and like I guess like what possible solutions do you see for the rank and file carriers to foster more of an environment of involvement and solidarity? Like we have really cool, like building and fighting NALC is doing a lot of that stuff, right? And like the CLC is doing that, and I think there's another group, and like I don't see these as fractions, like a fractious thing. It's like just different approaches at the same goal. What possible solutions do you see to get, I guess, foster more involvement and solidarity?
Well, one of the things is that I wrote an article not too long ago, months ago. The most recent article I've written, if you read in the Postal Record, is "Am I My Brother's Keeper?" Right? And then I've written several different articles relating to attending branch meetings, not being dissuaded by what you see, but accepting a responsibility yourself to set the example. Because like I said, you're not accountable for how people treat you. You're only accountable for how you treat others. And so all of us have an affirmative obligation, I think, to be a part. And when you have, whether or not it's CCAs or regular members that see the leadership not living up to their expectations, it definitely dilutes any arguments that you may have or any comments that you may have that you should be involved in the union. And they're saying, why is that the case? Because you're not doing it. You're not doing anything to earn my union dues. It's a waste. Well, it's not, because it's much more profound than that. So first and foremost, I think that each and every one of us should be always inviting someone to a union meeting. In addition to inviting someone to a union meeting, I think we should take the time, during our regular work day and get to know one another and speak. And I know that because the short times in the office now isn't like when I came on board. When I came on board, we used to be in the office, 3-4 hours, and you could stand there in case next to your casemate. You knew their kids' names, you knew their children's birthdays and all those other things. I know the circumstances have changed a lot when it comes to that, but it is really not a complex question other than or a real extensive set of answers. As much as it's just making a decision that I want to make a difference and leading by example, and thereby hoping that that influences someone else to get involved and want to make a difference as well. Most of the time, people get involved because they've encountered some traumatic scenario or situation in the job. We shouldn't have to wait to that. That's like family members not getting together until a funeral. Always something bad. You want to, you have weddings, you have birthdays, and a lot of times people don't attend those because they don't get invited. Well, a lot of times our members or of our union are not involved because they are unaware that there are activities that they can get involved in, such as doing precinct walks or coming to the branch union meetings, holiday parties or whatever the case may be. But we have to reach out to one. And I say each one, reach one.
Awesome. Yeah, I know there's I was just listening to some other organizers, and there's a book out, and they talk about the biggest thing about being a union organizer is just trying to get people closer to the center of the target, right? You just try to bring someone with is at any time. So that's definitely, yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. I think the other part to this question is, do you have that advice to bring someone to the union meeting? That is, I mean, I think everyone could use that. And like, if everyone does that more, I think we can kind of turn around that lack of involvement quite a bit. But do you have any specific advice for CCAs that want to get involved and kind of upset the same status quo? And I'm saying this, like, I don't want a dog on my branch, but I'm just running into opposition, and I'm annoying and loud. So like they just have to deal with me. But not everyone's got that sort of like got they just something that our CCAs can specifically do to get more involved in things and upset some of the status quo if they don't get movement at their branch, or if they don't kind of don't know where to start aside from just going to the branch meeting. Maybe they've gone to a couple of those and it's just not there's no opportunities for them to do anything there. I guess, do you have any advice for a CCA who's wanting to get more involved and upset the status quo that they might be stuck in where they're at?
You know, there are a couple of techniques, and it's not necessarily that, someone, particularly if you have a office or a station that has steward in. Some people file their own grievance at informal A, as you know, that carrier has the right to do that. And sometimes that rattles the cage of the local branch because they're like, oh, what's going on? The steward should be doing this and all this other stuff here. That is something that's within their rights. But what I do believe, again, it's not a complex question or a set of answers. It's just really a matter of them making up their mind and being determined that they want to be educated, sign up to go to the classes. When you go to the branch meetings, if you go consistently, you somewhat inherently become eligible to attend state and national conventions. We have trainings there. You have regional trainings. Take the time to sign up to attend those items, notwithstanding that you always have the ability to go to directly to your branch president or shop steward and say, I would like a copy of this, even though we have all our resources online. Well, where can I find this information at? So they can be informed and be able to recognize if there's a problem and that they can bring that information to their local branch, but insist on being heard, insist on working together. If there's multiple CCAs in that office, band together and say, hey, these are concerns that we have. Bring them up at the branch meeting. It's just, like I said, it's not all that complex. It really isn't. You got to have fundamentals, and at this fundamental base, that is what's necessary, is to engage your local steward and officers.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, no, because anything to get some of these CCAs more involved. So like, yeah, no, thank you for that. That's
Let me use me as an example. I think that perhaps you guys have gotten a sense, since you have particularly or specifically have engaged with me on multiple occasions as now. I do acknowledge that a lot of people that are in my position, that you would have to tie a string around their ankles because their head would be so big like a Macy balloon, they will float away. But for me, I don't see myself that way. I see myself as just another letter carrier that's just blessed and fortunate to be in a position of influence. I know that a lot of people will not approach folks that they believe are in authority. But one of the things is here is, you're talking about my faith, is that one thing the Bible talks about a lot, that's a huge quality in a leader, is humility, being humble. And, find someone that is approachable, that you believe is approachable, that'll take time and take interest in you and assist you, locally and even nationally. I put it to you, anyone, any letter carrier. You could be a CCA and hire it for one day, or a 35-year career carrier. You can call me and talk to me anytime. There's an issue that needs to be taken care of. Reach out to the branch president or the NBA office to make sure that you get the assistance. But I put my pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. Um, excuse me, please. I'm no better than anyone that is out there. And so I want to say that so the CCAs or any other carrier knows that we work for you and you should not be hesitant or scared to say, I need help, or I got a question, or think we're too busy, you don't want to bother us. That's what we're here for, is to be of service to you.
Yeah, I think that's great, though. We are the union, and the people up at the top work for us, and reminding people of that is, yeah.
So we're getting probably pretty far on in this recording. We've only got a couple questions left, so we're ending the close end of the race, but
it's late. It's late.
Yeah, it is quite late when we're recording this, so we're gonna try to get you through these last couple and get on out of here so that we're not making everybody listen to 7 hours of us talking. So we kind of talked a little bit about like the control of the members, what people can see, can do, and that's kind of happening at a local level. And we see it a lot online. People talking about, my branch doesn't let me do this. My branch won't let us do that. There's like a cronyism. I know that there's tons of people having this issue. Their branch president just rules with an iron fist, and the older carriers or the leaders of the branch just refuse to allow change to happen. It's happening everywhere. Do you know, or can you think of any advice or solutions that members have when their branch becomes the good old boys club? That's the word I was looking for.
Directly, I or no one else appoints your branch president. The membership elects them. And if you think that that is what's going on or believe that's what's going on, then most people that complain about it, they say that, hey, here's what the issue is. And how often have you seen most people are willing to step up and be stewards or step up and take on a leadership role? Even if you're not willing or able to take on those positions in this literal sense, in the figurative sense, you can by calling it out and saying that this is unacceptable, that everybody should be treated right. Everybody here has a voice. Every single member is entitled to have the same opportunities as every one of the current officers or in this branch. And so speak out and stand up for yourself. And if necessary, if something isn't going right, reach out to the business agent office, reach out to headquarters. If there is some issues that, is carried over to being unethical or so to speak, but stand up for yourself. The membership is supreme. It truly is.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I've definitely called my NBA's office.
You don't want to hear about my experience calling the NBA's office. Let's just.
I think to wrap up, because it's Monday night, it's late as hell. I think we wrap up a lot of our episodes talking about solidarity, and one big question, like we've seen, the labor movement has sort of had a resurgence in the last couple of years, right? And I was wondering, what do you see? Because the NALC used to be such a leader in the labor movement, especially in for federal employees and all that. What do you see? How do you see the NALC, and do you have taking that leadership role back? And do you have any plans to coordinate with the rural craft, to coordinate with to support Amazon getting unionized? Because the post office wants to compare our work to Amazon, not UPS. So it's kind of that a rising tide lifts all ships type thing. Do you, when you get into office, if you get in office, what do you guys have plans to coordinate with other crafts and other unions to support our union brothers and sisters in other postal crafts and our union cousins in other industries that are similar to ours? Is there any talk with the CLC board about putting in something like that? Or
Well, absolutely, that would be something that would be on our agenda because the advancement of any and all workers is something that is at our very core, about having and restoring ourselves actually back to a position of leadership within the labor, world, so to speak. Myself, I was a longtime delegate of the Labor Council out in Orange County, and therefore we dealt with and interacted with a lot of different labor unions, such as the United Food and Commercial Workers, the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the nursing union, and here the hotel employee and restaurant employees. And within our postal ranks, say we have the rural carriers that we would love to see merge, and with us, because I do believe that we're stronger together, a unified front on all counts make a difference because we all should be about what is important to our workers. And it's particularly, our specific interest is that of letter carriers, but we all have crossing interests such as, living wages, such as having secure jobs, making enough to have a good health plan system, making sure that we have safety within our work place environment. All of these things, are transcends each and every labor organization I could think of, and certainly as the NALC, my pastor used to say as well, to have friends, you must show yourself friendly. So as such, we most definitely would be involved and engaged in trying to assimilate with other union organizations and open arms with our brothers and sisters in the rural craft. Come on if you want. Those that are fighting for union rights. And you mentioned Amazon. Let me point out something about this. It kind of comes back to our particular situation and scenario now, where how we're in contract negotiations, and a lot of people were afraid to stand up and fight because of what may happen if we don't get more than what we have. What if we are unfortunate to move past arbitration and the Trump administration somehow intervene? What if the Postal Service is firm on what it is that they've offered, and that's it? We should take what we get and what's going on. What if I stand up and say that I don't believe that this is a sufficient tentative agreement or package, but I'm afraid that I'm going to be vilified or beat down by my leadership? And those say, well, use all those different excuses not to fight for what you believe is in your best interest. Well, you have the Amazon workers that they not only contend with not getting a living wage, they more often than not place their entire job or career on the line when they ask to be unionized. But they stand up and fight still, because that's what we're supposed to do. What's the point of a union? What's the point of a union if you're not going to stand up and fight for what you believe is right and your workers' right? This labor movement is laden with all kinds of examples of people that not only lost their jobs, but some lost their lives striking against powerful organizations. And for us who have interest arbitration as a backstop, that when there is a labor dispute and we can't negotiate anything, worst case scenario, you still have at least what you already have. We don't start over from the beginning like a lot of labor organizations. And so yes, I am a firm believer. I am a huge proponent on coexisting and correlating and coordinating with one another to have a strong labor market because, as you aptly stated, a rising tide lifts all boats. That includes our letter carriers, and we should be at the helm of that in every instance. Because how do you have the moral authority to ask somebody to do something if you're not doing it?
Hell yes. Yeah. No, that was, yeah. No, that's a, yeah. No, being able to support everybody and take care of everybody, even the people who aren't necessarily under our umbrella, because what's better for them is better for us. They can shortchange us if we let them shortchange all these other people too. So I really appreciate that. That's very good to hear. All right. It's again, it's
Yeah, the clock your time, isn't it?
Yes.
oh yeah, that's right.
But we started with about 9:30.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Something like that.
I think so.
Because it's supposed to be 9, and then we got about an hour and a half, but it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Did you have? I think that as far as my notes, I think we kind of covered a lot of stuff. Was there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about, or Mallory? Am I missing anything that?
I can't think of anything, so let's just give James the opportunity to close out and say anything else that you'd like to say, Mr. Henry.
What I do want to say here, I know this is called CCA Corner, and I think that you guys, for one, are doing a phenomenal job and taking the lead and being an example as to activism. We're talking about the strong bears, the infirmities of the weak. We're career employees are in a stronger position than the CC in many respects, and we have an affirmative obligation to look out and to lift them up when there is a need, and there is a need now because of the lack of a starting wage that's deficient because of work rules that don't necessarily favor them the way that it would a career employee. But the one thing that I do want to say to the CCA, since this is a CCA corner, is that you are a full-fledged union member. You are as important as anyone that is employed at the post office. And I want you to know that I, the CLC, and any NLC rep worth their salt and their bread should, and that we do have your backs like vertebrae. The help is on the way. Do not be dismayed. Be not discouraged because of some of the bad experiences that you may have had. And hopefully some of you have not had bad experiences and have been in a position where your career has flourished, that you've come on and become career employees in short order, haven't had a scenario where the managers are, like I said, treating you like you have a tail. But the wonderful thing is, the good news is that you do have a union and that there are people out there that do care. I care. The CLC care. Several other NLC activists care. So stay encouraged, stay involved, stay unified, because stronger together, one can't fall without the other. That's our superpower, is staying unified. Be blessed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. I really appreciate you taking your time out of your super busy schedule to make time for little guys out here. And we love hearing from you and hearing what you have to say. I think you're a great speaker, and I love the stuff that you have to say. I'm happy to be a CLC supporter.